What is going on? Hello, hello. Hopefully everyone can hear me. If there's any problem, just let me know. I have a uh, eye on the chat, and today will be sort of a special live stream because I'm trying out this new software, StreamYard. Let's just hope that I am audible and visible and everything's fine. Just let me know in the chat. Sort of Chirag, Tejas. Hello, everyone. Hi, Tejas. So I can show your comments like this also. Hello, Chirag, and hi, Saurav. Nothing much here, just trying out a different format of live today. Have a couple of announcements to make and just give you some of the things away as well. So mostly this is going to be sort of a Q&A. I want to keep it as a Q&A for the most part, but would really like to take on your view as well on the learning path and just see if it could be modified in any way to have the best sort of learning experience as well. So we have a couple of questions coming in. I will be going through all the questions, but yeah, let's just wait for a bunch of minutes so that everyone can come on the live stream. Am I audible, right? Yes, you're audible. Yes, that's perfect. Thank you, Vaibhav, for that. And yeah, I mean, this more than what I wanted to do today. I actually like the StreamYard. I mean, this is not a sponsored live, but this is a pretty cool live streaming software, and it's all running from the web. Like I can say good evening from India like that. Pretty cool. So yeah, let's just take some of the questions. I don't really want to do Q&A right away, but because Anuj has asked a question, let's take that. I have been in industry for more than 3 years. Just wanted to know why people considered front-end dev as mediocre and backend as a very much special skill. I have been moved from Java to UI Angular. Well, I won't say front-end as mediocre, but yeah, I have actually personally seen this as well, that backend is considered a little bit more elite than front end, but to be honest, that is not the case. Web, probably the front end part is much more, much more complicated and has a lot of edge cases compared to backend, because on backend you are writing code for predictable servers, but on front end there are a lot of places where your code would be shipped, mobile applications, even watches now, different screen resolutions, different browsers, different operating systems. So there's a lot of things, there's a lot of surface area where your code could go wrong. So I would definitely say that front-end guys have more work to do. But yeah, I mean, this is not really a very strong convention in the industry, I won't say that. But yeah, if you know a little bit about front-end and back-end, that always helps. So it's not about like, you should not really care about what people say. If you're good enough in front-end development, you're going to be a good developer anyway. So that's fine. Let's change the message to ask your questions first of all, because then I'll just do a backend learning path live launch. Yeah, thank you so much. Hello, Ben. And thank you. Yeah, probably not horrible if you say so. How did you get into programming? Can you share your story? For me, I wanted to actually customize some of the things I was running on one of the blogs. So I don't think a lot of people know the backstory of how I got into programming. That was basically because of, when back in the days when I was blogging on the topics where I used to share cracked softwares and cracked content, like getting some premium accounts by just ripping from other sites. I used to do that when I was young. So I wanted to have these subscription widgets on websites, subscribe to the newsletter, subscribe to email, our monthly newsletter, stuff like that. So I always wanted to, customize them in some way. Like I wanted to have another field for name, or maybe like customize some CSS, some styles. I wanted to change the look and feel of that. So that was like the first interaction of mine with the HTML CSS things. So that sort of just amazed me, that what till how granularity code can help you customize things. So this is what really got me into code, and that's since that point when I actually explored how much you can do with programming, that is what really got me into the whole ecosystem of coding. So yeah, let's just move on to the actual thing. First of all, I'll just take questions in between as well. But what I wanted to tell you guys about in this live was the early preview of the backend learning path. And what do I mean by that? Let me just go ahead and quickly show you that. So pretty cool feature again from StreamYard. Just like you can just share your desktop screen at the same time, and it will be available like that. So on CodeDam, today is the day when the backend developer learning path would be available in early preview. Now, what do I mean by early preview? One second. It just basically means that you can just go ahead and see the actual things. And let me just go ahead and remove this banner also. It's my first time, so don't really bother. But yeah, so this sort of thing, this sort of is the roadmap, the learning map, the alpha preview sort of thing of what I believe would be a good Node.js backend development learning path. Now, what I have seen personally is a lot of people, what they do is they just learn HTML, CSS, and then they shift to JavaScript, and then they think that if now we know JavaScript, let's just go ahead and move on to Node.js and become a full stack developer. Sort of works, could work, but a horrible approach in terms of knowledge gaps, because I have seen a lot of people working with coding and programming knowledge who don't even know the fundamentals of HTTP protocol, right? So HTTP, if you think about it, you use it all the time. Right now, you are watching a video on YouTube. If you're watching it from a web browser, you are using HTTPS youtube.com. So what does that mean? Why is there HTTP written? DNS, how does youtube.com, how does your computer really know about communicating with some computer which can serve youtube.com's content? So things like these are more like some fundamental questions which I believe you should know, even if you don't really think about them, because once you know about things like these, you're going to have a better understanding in terms of learning things. When you're learning things like, when you're writing a Node.js server, then you're going to be much more, you're going to be much more comfortable in understanding what an HTTP server is, what a port is. If you're opening a port on port 80, if you're running a service on port 443, you're going to understand these terminologies. So it's a much better way to start your learning with the basics. These are some of the fundamental questions, right, which you don't really need to know in order to learn backend, but these are some of the things which will actually sort of set you apart from the crowd. So this is a very common question which I get as well from a lot of people, that, hey, how do we set ourselves apart from the crowd? There are so many web developers. Is this even a field which is sort of good now? So yes, it is definitely good. The only thing you have to do is set yourself apart from the majority of the crowd. And how you do that? You do that by filling in the gaps which majority of people have in their knowledge. A lot of people know about Node.js, right? A lot of people can write a basic Express HTTP server. But how many people can explain you from the ground up how and what happens when you write google.com in your domain bar and hit enter? What is DNS? How does networking work? Now, a lot of people can do that as well. But I would say that not a lot of people would be there who can do both, right? So the way to really stand apart from crowd is to get, intersection of these Venn diagram circles, that you are a good developer with a language, as well as you have a good knowledge of how the things really work under the hood. For example, in this case, our HTTP protocol and internet and stuff like this. So moving on to front end, this is basically what I have seen as a gradual progression. If you want to become a backend developer, the best thing is to start off with the basics, like the HTTP protocol, DNS, stuff like this, which is more on the sort of theoretical part, because to be honest, you don't really want to just go ahead and sit with Netcat all the day when you're starting off with backend development, right? So you're going to start off with very basic things, how HTTP works, what HTTP is, how these things really work, what these things really are. And once you are comfortable, I can see somebody is spamming with a sort of a name, but I'm just going to put the user in a timeout. So yeah, anyway, so starting off with these things is going to help you build a foundation, which will help you eventually learn about different things quickly, right? So this is my take, my personal take. A lot of people learn backwards. They would learn first of all these things, and then they would come back to this. To be honest, I did the same thing, but it took me 7 years to be here, right, on this platform where I can actually say this thing to you. So if I had a learning path like this, if I had some sort of guidance, some sort of mentorship like this, I can easily chip away. I could have easily chipped away 2, 3, 4 years, maybe even 4 years, right? So I did it not the best way. I won't say it is the wrong way. It is not the most optimal way. I used to learn things which are way ahead in the learning path, and then I used to come back to fill the gaps. But now if I think about this, if I would have started with the basics, or even just got to and fro between basics and different concepts, practical concepts, then it would have chipped away a lot of time. So that's some free gyan, some free knowledge for you. So after you are done with the HTTP fundamentals, I think the good approach would be to take up a little bit of front-end development, even though if you're a back-end developer, even if you want to become a back-end developer. Why? Because I don't know about you guys, but if you're learning something, chances are you are learning it alone, on your own, right? You are not learning on production. You are not learning in a team-based environment. Whenever you are upskilling things, you're learning alone. And when you're learning alone, for the most part, you have to do all the work, right? So for example, if you're learning backend development and you have no idea what HTML is, you cannot really do a lot of stuff unless you know some sort of front-end thing also. Now, that front-end thing could be a mobile application. For example, if you want to develop a mobile application, if you're a mobile developer, that front-end thing could be the web front, right? These HTML, CSS things. But you need to know a technology which can consume your backend. Now, if you're working in a team, it is possible that somebody manages that front-end part for you. But if you're like me, who's learning things on your own, then it is very much possible that initially you have to figure out these things as well. So for example, if you are creating a authentication page or authentication site, then it is best if you know about a basic HTML JavaScript thing, so that you can perform AJAX requests, some HTTP request to the backend to verify, authenticate the stuff, so that you have a sort of a UI available to you as well. Because as a backend developer, this is something which is not you're gonna be involved in day to day, but it never hurts to have extra knowledge, right? Better have extra knowledge than a little bit less knowledge, because, well, you can understand that. So for front end, we have a bunch of things. In fact, for front end, we have a whole another learning path. If you just open this in a new tab, you could probably see that front-end developer has a whole another learning path. Now, I don't really recommend you as a back-end developer to hop into the front-end, this whole learning path, because it consists of a lot of things which are very, very specific to front-end itself. For example, let's see, for example, this React, you won't encounter that on backend, except if you're running server-side rendering. But for the most part, these are like Material UI and Tailwind CSS, Bootstrap. These are front-end things, right? You're never gonna be encountering any case where you're stuck with Material UI as a backend developer. It is gonna be rare, or even if it is, then it will have some sort of front-end involvement anyway. So coming back to the backend learning path, this is gonna be how it looks like. You're gonna be starting off with a little bit of front-end, not a lot of video courses. These are some of the exercises which are, the hands-on exercises, right? So basic HTML, basic CSS3, these are the exercises which actually enable you to, let's just go through one of them. For example, if you open this book list project, these sort of exercises are going to help you. Oops, I think I'm not logged in. Let's log in real quick, and just to give you an overview, just to give you an idea on the exercises sort of thing, which is a practical hands-on learning type of thing, right? And obviously this is also free to access. So you get a whole IDE like interface where you have to solve some challenges. You have an output where you can actually interact with things. You have a real running Linux server, right? So things like these are some of the things which I wanted as an individual when I was learning things, which are like practical hands-on learning stuff where you can actually build a real world project by the end of your classroom. So this is one of the linked classroom which you can see. So this is also similar to what you just saw right now. So if we, oops, I think I opened it in a new tab, but anyway, so you see that this is basically again pretty much what you're going to see as a person who's learning HTML. So you get the idea with that. Let's move on to Linux basics. Super important thing. A lot of people miss it, and I see a lot of people actually struggling with these things with very common, very simple commands as well. Linux basics is something you should really, really, really try to spend a little bit amount of time. I see a lot of people just hacking around their way with command line, with CLI. Most of them are afraid. They use GUI tools. They use all sorts of things to avoid CLI. But to be honest, if you want to really be a good developer, you should have a good understanding with the Linux CLI itself, right? That is the bash CLI, basically the bash shell itself. So this course, again, it's an alpha preview. This is alpha launch. It's not, something which is done and dusted. But this is the thing which you should spend a lot of time with, because these things would actually allow you to not only become a fast and a better developer. Again, some of the things which just which just puts you apart from the crowd, right? So this is also one of the things. How quickly can you navigate your way around in a file system, right? For example, if I tell you that, hey, let's say I have a file on this system with the name xyz.html, right, which has contents of Mehul. How quickly can you find that? It is almost impossible to do that with a GUI unless your operating system has some inbuilt tool, or if you're using an external GUI tool. But with Linux, you can use the find command, you can use the grep command, you can use these things to immediately just traverse your way along the actual file system and actual things on your computer as well. So it's pretty useful as a skill. Linux basics, as a backend developer, you should be very much sort of inclined towards in terms of learning. So you should learn these things. So this is also covered as a small standalone course. Then of course, because this is a Node.js learning path, we cover Node.js as a basic course, but it is split into more sub courses as well. So Node.js basics, it starts with JavaScript basics. Again, JavaScript basics is covered in depth in the front-end developer learning path itself, but we cover that again inside this Node.js learning path. Let's see. Then moving on to just databases and Node.js projects. From this point onward, it's more like practical implementation of things. So you can think of, till this, you have to actually actively learn things, and then you can implement things according to whatever you need. Like you can work with databases now to create simple projects, to create simple applications which you can put on GitHub and showcase as well. So databases is an important concept irrespective of what language you are using. So we cover that as well. But because this is an alpha preview, this would not be available just yet. But trust me, this would be my personal deadline for this is within, I would say, a couple of weeks. So you can expect that. Then moving on, it's just more or less, practical implementation, hands-on work, practice of things. Node.js, creating projects around things, then moving on to version control system, working with GitHub, things like these. So this is a pretty elaborative sort of way to go about things, but this is actually which is the real learning sort of journey which you have to go through. A lot of people will say you just buy a single course and you will become a backend developer bootcamp. But if you look into these courses, if they are actually valuable, you're gonna eventually realize that these courses contain all these topics anyway. And if they do not contain, then they are not teaching you to be a backend developer. They are teaching you a particular language, right? They're teaching you Node.js. Node.js does not mean backend development. It involves a lot of different things. Python, Django, being a Django, person fluent in Django or Python or Flask does not necessarily mean that you are a good backend developer as well. It takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of, I would say, personal projects to just understand and realize the nuts and bolts of things. So yeah, this is what I'm trying to build up with the journey like this using learning paths. Again, very alpha in preview, but it is available for you guys to just go ahead and start looking on. We also cover GraphQL and CI/CD at the end of the sort of thing. Now, one thing, this learning path is free to start. It is absolutely no terms and conditions, no bullshit on, you have to pay from the very starting. But once we, get to the parts where it gets more interesting, like building full-fledged projects. So some of these courses are going to be logged. Some of these classrooms might be logged, classrooms which are hands-on learning practice. So some of these classrooms might be logged. So in order to do that, you can go ahead and enroll in order to have the complete access, you can go ahead and enroll in this Lead account. Again, I'm saying this is not 100% mandatory required to get started. You can take your time. You can, take whatever time you need. All the courses which I have gone through so far are free to access, even without you logging in. So that's the thing. But this gets you access to an actual unrestricted access to the platform in terms of code labs, that is the classrooms, and the further and future courses as well. And just for this launch, I think, let me just go ahead and change the banner. Just for this launch, we have a 20% off on this price. So if you go ahead and use the coupon, which is in the description, I think it's not YouTube subscriber, but it is Backend Alpha INR, or depending on what you want, you can get a 20% off on the actual price, right? So if you enroll right now, you're going to have unlimited access to the learning path which we have currently, as well as to the learning paths which will be available in future with all the courses and classrooms. So I'm like really trying to build something of super valuable here. And the video courses, they cost us in terms of data transfer, and the classrooms, they cost us in terms of actual Linux computers which are running, right? So yeah, I mean, this is something the cost covers, and getting external creators, things like these. So I can go all the way on why this cost is justifiable, less than a Udemy course, a typical Udemy course. But yeah, I won't, because the purpose of this live was not to really sell a backend learning path, but to also involve you guys with a conversation. So let's just take up some questions while we have this with us. And of course, you can find this link in the description for the 20% off. So let me just go ahead and take a look at some of the comments from the bottom. Siva asks, do I need to study React.js? Can I just go with Express and Node.js without React for a good job? Definitely you can. I don't think a lot of backend developers know React.js, which are specifically backend developers, right? So if you're a systems engineer or a backend developer, there is absolutely no reason you should know React, right? React is most likely a good choice for people who are front-end developers. So yeah, go ahead and start with Node and Express, and learning about Linux CLI, how deployment works, how DevOps works, how these pipelines are being set up, how to work with cloud providers. Like this is also a great market right now, which is very very untapped in terms of talent. So there's actually a learning path for DevOps as well, which is in work in progress. But yeah, you can work without React. Chirag had the same question, so we're gonna skip that. Questions time. It's actually questions time. So just so you know, ask your questions right now, and I will be answering in the live stream itself. So John says you will be expected to know front end too. Companies want their money worth. I would say it depends on the scale of the company as well, right? So if you're in a company which is already well off and they are growing and they want specialized talent, now this could be small startups as well as huge enterprises as well. Most of the times they want expertise in a particular skill, right? So the notion that the companies are really looking for people who can do everything is sort of there, but you can have companies and startups which are looking for laser focused skills as well. Because if somebody knows how to work their way around with AWS billing, for example, that person would be much more worth in terms of person who just half-ass knows everything. Because if you are able to bring down your cloud bills just by having that person on board, that is a much better investment than bringing somebody on board who does not know a lot of things. So yeah, when is a good time to learn TypeScript? When learning Mon stack. I have been learning Mon for 6 months and I can do most basic things. CRUD operations of MongoDB. Should I learn now? Definitely. You can go ahead and start learning TypeScript right now. And for me, I can just go ahead and explain what my sort of way was with TypeScript. To be honest, I never really just sat down and learned TypeScript like people usually mention. I tried to slip in TypeScript very slowly into my projects because um, I think nobody knows, but CodeDam started off as a very basic JavaScript only project in a client side React, which was not even using Create React app. And now it uses Next.js on TypeScript with GraphQL on TypeScript. So all this transition, it did not happen like overnight. So incorporating TypeScript in your existing JavaScript projects would be the best way to get started with TypeScript, because you're going to start messing around with errors which you probably would know in your code base itself, and would give you a much better sort of a learning path in terms of learning TypeScript as well. So pick up a small course on TypeScript, Udemy, anything. I don't think we have a TypeScript course yet on CodeDam. So just go ahead and pick up a YouTube playlist on TypeScript. I think we have a bunch of great tutorials on YouTube for that as well. And start transitioning your own projects into TypeScript. That will help you really get the taste of how TypeScript can boost productivity. And it's going to be not a very smooth patch. It can be a rough patch when you are converting your code base, but yeah, it is worth learning. That is what I'll say. TypeScript is worth learning. So let's see. After making a basic API app, I want to learn next in Node.js. What to learn next in Node.js? I would say build on the top of APIs. Now, if you are saying that you have built basic APIs, I would probably think that you're not using MongoDB, right? So the next step, or MongoDB, or as a matter of fact, any database. So the next step is going to be exploring databases and using APIs with them. If you have a basic API for authentication, shift that part to MongoDB, right? Now your authentication should take place from the database itself. Once you have learned how to interact with MongoDB in basic JavaScript, try to learn about mongoose and schemas in databases. Schemas is a pretty important topic in databases, even in NoSQL databases like MySQL, MongoDB, which do not enforce schemas. But yeah, once you learn that, you're going to understand about constraints in databases. Then you're going to be learning a little bit more about indexes and how you can improve your queries. So things like these would really help you merge concepts from different domains like backend and databases and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, the next step is always to increase a little bit of complexity in your application when you're trying to learn things. A basic API, make it a little bit more complex. Introduce a layer of database. Once you're done with databases, you feel confident, try to introduce a layer of caching with Redis. Once you're done with caching, try to make it environment independent with, let's say, Docker, right? So now you have a technology like Docker to learn. So yeah, I mean, a lot of ways to go about. You just have to build something on which you have already done. So Amit says a lot of times, so I'm just going to answer that. Node.js versus Golang for backend. I'm not a Golang developer. I have tried Golang in a very simple way, but yeah, I mean, in terms of performance, if you're asking, obviously Golang is more performant than Node.js because it compiles to native code, as far as I know. But in terms of use case, I don't know if you are a Node.js developer. For me personally, I would be able to do and would be much, much, much more productive in Node.js if I have to create something overnight or in the next 3-5 days than in Golang, right? If you are somebody who has a lot of time and a lot of patience and you want to learn a technology which is very performant, robust, fast, then Golang might be a better choice. But Node.js is a great choice if you already are aware about JavaScript in general from front-end development, and if you want to transition your skills on the back end. Node.js would not be the fastest in comparison with Golang or Rust, but it will get your job done with a decent amount of with a decent amount of performance any day. So that's my take on that. Let's see, I think I skipped a bunch of questions. Is JavaScript good for backend compared to Java, Python? I think of this in a way like if you already know JavaScript from front end, then it's a good choice to just jump into that. But if you are starting from scratch, then I would say, and if you want to become a backend developer only, that is one thing. So if you're starting from scratch and you want to become a backend developer only, that is, you do not want to enter front end at all, or you do not want to become full stack developer, then Python or Java is fine as a backend choice as well. But if you have in mind to deploy full applications yourself, to learn React as well as Node.js and TypeScript, and deploy backends yourself, deploy full applications yourself, then at some point you would not be able to ignore JavaScript, right? At some point you will be working with front end and you will need to work with frameworks, you will need to work with JavaScript. So if you already will be working with JavaScript in near future, then why just learn Python, which is, probably slower than JavaScript in a lot of cases. So yeah, if that is the case you're going to, then obviously go ahead and learn JavaScript instead of Python or Java. Otherwise, just go ahead and learn whatever you like. It just really boils down to what makes you the most productive. So yeah. Let's see what else we have. Is college degree necessary for backend developer? No, it is not necessary, Pawan. In fact, this is actually not related to college degree at all. Nothing is really related to college degree at all. They never really teach you to become a backend developer in colleges. Trust me, I'm saying this I come from a decently good college from BITS Goa, and they do not teach you web development. They do not teach you nothing in colleges in terms of something which is actually practically implementable the next day you graduate, right? So no, that's my only answer. Like, no, it's not necessary. Would you go with React every time? Would you learn React or Vue? React state management is overly complex in comparison to views, right? Now, my answer obviously would be biased here because I am a React developer myself. And I don't know. I mean, why is it complicated in terms of Vue? I have used Vue as well, but yeah, I mean, Redux makes things a little bit more complicated for beginners. But once you get the hang of it, you understand why it is built the way it is built. So personally, I would go with React every time just because I know how to work with React, right? If I knew how to build anything with Vue, I would just go with that. It depends. If you are a sort of somebody who's super comfortable with Vue, you're gonna go with Vue all the time, right? And just to say, React state management is not overly complex comparison to Vue. I have used both. You just need to get a hang of the framework or library which you're working on. So yeah, the local state management, especially with the hooks, is very, very friendly, I would say. And even with the not hooks, you can have context API. Even if context API is not there, then Redux is also there. Redux is sort of, requires you to just sit down and just concentrate on the real actual concept for an hour or so. Once you get that idea, then it's simple. So yeah, I'll go with React for the most part. But again, I'm biased because I'm a React developer. Right, so Node.js versus Golang for backend, so much spam going on. Uh, how important is it to master data structures and algorithm for backend development? Not a lot. I won't say that you have to implement a BFS or DFS search on backend all the time, right? So there might be some cases where you have specific implementation of a very specific small algorithm, but that is going to be rare, right? And that is going to be one time, and you're going to be figuring that out automatically if you're comfortable with your tools. What I would, however, recommend is that build up the logic of things. And this is the most confusing aspect, I think, where most of the people get tricked, is that data structures and algorithms, when you're learning web development, is not necessary at all. People recommend that because it helps you to build logic, and logic is required everywhere. It's not just backend, it's not just front end, it's everywhere. So if you're using data structures algorithms as a, as a sort of thing to learn about logic, to think about how you can code stuff, then it is fine. If you're learning it to gain ranks on platforms like CodeChef or HackerRank, then it is useless in terms of web development, right? You are not going to learn actual implementation of things. For example, if you want to build a chat server with WebSockets and things, and um, some sort of application which involves a group chat, then to be honest, it's not like you have to spend a couple of days thinking on the algorithm to come up with a, sort of directing the chats everywhere. That is not going to happen. It is a very straightforward thing. You create a room, you broadcast a message, that's it. Everyone knows that in the industry. Data structures and algorithms might help you to really understand what might be the best way to go about a particular situation like this, like creating a room and then broadcasting in this. But that knowledge is not going to be very practical in terms of writing the code, right? So it's not like the problems which you're solving on lead code right now are going to be the problems which you're going to be facing in real world applications as well. They indirectly might help you in terms of logic building, but just like I said, logic building is not the only thing. The data structures and algorithms is not the only thing which would help you to build logic. Your own personal practice on projects, your own hands-on experience also helps you build logic a lot of times. So it really depends on how you want to learn things. For me, I don't really like solving dummy problems like that. I would rather just spend and waste my day around trying to build something and learning from that, instead of sort of just solving some problems which I won't use really later on. So yeah, that's my take, to be honest. I'm working on PHP, but I want to switch to Node. I have a good knowledge of JavaScript. How can I learn to get a job in Node? Have 6 years of experience in PHP. So first things first, you should have a reason to switch to Node. I still think I might be one of the few people who think that PHP is still a super strong skill, because it powers a lot of web. It powers WordPress. Nothing is changing on that front so far. So if you have a very strong reason, if there's, then that's probably a good decision to switch to Node. PHP is gonna be a just fine choice as well. Right? Let me just go ahead and one second. Yeah. So coming back to your question, if you have a good knowledge of JavaScript, I think that is more than enough. You can see on right here, if I can, no, wrong direction. I don't know how should I point this. Yeah. So this is the Node.js backend learning path. You can see this backend developer learning path gets you through all the required things you want. So you can probably skip this internet front end and Linux basics, because I believe you already know that. You can start with the Node.js basics. Again, this is because this is an alpha preview. We're going to be adding more content on this. But I'm pretty confident that if you already have a background in programming, I would be able to take you through PHP or any other tech stack which you already know and convert you into a Node.js developer using this learning path. And yeah, that's my take on this. Because you already have an experience, it should not be difficult for you to convert between languages. Tell me the best resource for learning RxJS and Redux Observable with React.js. I'm not the best guy for this, to be honest. I do not have a lot of experience with RxJS. This is something I want to get into, reactive programming. But yeah, if I were in your position right now, I'll just YouTube some of the videos, some of the conference talks. I have seen a bunch of conference talks from Netflix on this, I believe. Some of the Netflix engineers have had this nice sort of 1 hour, 30 minutes talk on what RxJS is and how it's changing the world or something. So yeah, go ahead and watch that. That would give you an actual understanding of things as well. But I do not have personal, practical, hands-on experience with RxJS yet. So I can't really recommend you any learning resource for that also. I need a free access of your 1337 package. So it's basically 2 3s, but I get the feeling. Well, I think we offer that in our Discord server on a monthly basis. I think it's overdue for a couple of months now, but we offer that to the highest engaging person in the Discord server. Everything is in the description, so you can go ahead and check that part out if you want for a free access. But come on, yeah, it's less than a Udemy course per month, so I don't think it really matters a lot if you are making a good amount of money with your job itself. And just investing money on your knowledge itself is always the best thing. And when you actually have access to all these courses and classrooms for less than 1,000 rupees a month or less than $14 a month, I think it's an investment worth making. So yeah. And in fact, you also have a 20% off today, so that even makes my point even stronger. So for that, you can check out the link in the description. I think I can just randomly throw out this banner, just like typical YouTubers, that 20% off link is in the description. But yeah, let's continue with the Q&A because I'm enjoying this. Can you shed some light on system designs part? Now, this is something I would not really worry about initially when you're starting off things. Once you are done with a little bit of backend engineering and you know how things are working, then probably I will jump into some of the cloud things, right? Setting up sort of your own cloud-based infrastructure with AWS or DigitalOcean or whatever cloud you prefer, and then taking some time out and understanding what exactly system designs help you with, right? System designs is just a fancy way to just come up with a solution which is most efficient and can withstand a lot of traffic, right? That is what I think. The formal definition might be different, but what I believe is if you have a good system designs on your backend, then that means you are a good enough server to handle sudden spikes of load, sudden upscaling, downscaling, things like these. So for the most part, this would involve a little bit of knowledge in terms of what really happens when there's a lot of traffic, right? Now we see that a lot of servers crash when there's a lot of traffic. But why is that? Have you ever wondered what really is the difference between a single hit and a million hit on a server? So that again comes down to your networking knowledge, your Linux sort of knowledge, that every connection is actually a socket on your main server. A socket is actually a Linux file, and there's a sort of a limit, a hard limit and a soft limit in Linux computers on the number of open files. So if you exceed that, your systems might crash, right? If you exceed the amount of RAM which is allocated on your system or on your VPS, your operations might crash. If you're running your CPUs on 100% on an EC2 and your sort of EC2 T2 micro quota exhaust, your systems might crash. So again, this is not really the typical definition of system designs, but this is how you gonna appreciate what you will be learning in systems design. And to get into things like these, I think you're gonna find much more better resources on YouTube than I can tell you right away right now. But this is how I will think about getting into it. Just do not learn it for the sake of learning and putting it on your resume. Learn it because you can actually use it practically in your applications on a high traffic website or something which needs a robust and scalable and a fail-safe solution as well, as a matter of fact. So think about not only system designs but actually everything in those terms, right? So that is how I really think about things. And I think I lost a lot of messages because I scrolled down. And yeah, here we go. Which is the best JavaScript library framework at your opinion? Well, I'll be biased here again. React. I would say React it is, but don't take my word for it because I am a React developer. I have far more experience in React than in any other Angular or Vue or Svelte or any other framework which is out there. So there is no best, trust me. If I'm speaking from a neutral point of view, there is no best out there. It just depends the technology which resonates with you, right? Not everybody has the same favorite color or the same favorite number or I don't know, the same actor, right? In the same sense, you cannot really have a universal best framework, because if it were possible to have a universal best framework, other frameworks would copy that practice, right? And that is exactly what happens too. So there is no best JavaScript library framework in a neutral point of view. But in Mehul's point of view, that is me as a developer, I would say React because I am a React developer. If you ask an Angular developer, he or she will say Angular, right? If you ask a Vue developer, the answer would be Vue. So there's that. And again, at your opinion, because you said for my opinion, that would be React. How does YouTube, how you display YouTube comments? This is a pretty cool feature from, just like I said, StreamYard. You could probably see the logo on top right. This is free advertisement for them. But yeah, this is not a sponsored live stream, but pretty cool software. I might probably just buy a license or something. But yeah, this is how it's done. I have got an internship in React Native, but I have never done React Native. How much time should it be taking me to translate my knowledge from React JS to React Native? Well, I would say not a lot, right? So for the most part, if you're just working with closed solutions like Expo in React JS, in React Native, then for the most part, your knowledge would be 95% same. You just have to probably learn a little bit of 5% different APIs in the Android and iOS world. But in terms of really taking the advantage of the native world in the React Native, so React Native actually consists of native world as well. So if you really want to take advantage of native plugins and customized solutions which do not use Expo, where you have to opt out of Expo and really work with the Java files and the Objective-C files, then it will take some time, right? Because now you are eventually learning something which is truly in terms of mobile development itself. React Native, a lot of people, have this sort of idea that it is like a very simple way to transition from JavaScript to React Native in terms of mobile development. But trust me, if you get the actual understanding of how React Native is work, and if you ever had a use case where you have to implement something which is not provided by React Native, you go down that rabbit hole of actually working with the real mobile application development things, right? You're back to Android manifest, you are back to info.plist, you are back to using all these Cocoa pods and Cradle plugins and installing everything on your own. So definitely that will take some time, but you can get up and running with Expo or maybe just JavaScript only solutions for mobile application development, I would say within a couple of days, right? So if you are a React developer, it should not take you more than 3, 4, 5 days. A simple, maybe a React Native course on Codam or any other course, as a matter of fact, and you should be up and running. What is the scope of Flutter? Pretty good, pretty decent. I have been hearing a lot about Flutter recently. They have been launching their own nice versions, right? Expecting React Native to release a version 1 real soon. It's been way too long for React Native to be in a unstable 0 point something release. So really looking forward to that. But yeah, in terms of Flutter, I'm not again a Flutter developer. I have not built a very decent sort of application, I would say, in Flutter. So I won't really know the nuts and bolts of the language and the framework, but it looks pretty bright, backed by Google, already in their version 1 release, releasing versions very frequently. So that's a very healthy sign. Can you make a paid course on Flutter? Why do you want it to be paid? I don't know. Most of the people want free stuff. Uh, but yeah, Flutter is not on my list right now, and I won't really commit on any course as of now, but maybe in the future, definitely. I'm more of a React Native guy at the moment. Let's see. So many comments. Mm, would you recommend learning PHP, Laravel, or Express Node? If you're starting from zero, I would say go the Express and Node way, because that will help you transfer your skills, the JavaScript skills which you learn in Node, on front end as well. If you already have a PHP experience, then Laravel is the next step to level up your skills in terms of, having that MVC knowledge, the architecture knowledge, as well as building robust code with PHP. So there's that. Depends on where you are currently in your sort of learning journey. WebAssembly with Blazor. This is something I have heard quite sometimes, but I have not spent a lot of time with WebAssembly and Blazor together. So yeah, definitely something I wish to cover in the near future, not even in the far future. Yeah, this is something I would learn myself first of all, and then probably just put out some information. So won't really comment on anything on either of them right now. Vertical or horizontal scaling? Horizontal scaling, obviously. Vertical scaling is not truly scalable, to be honest. Horizontal scaling is what cool kids do these days, right? A lot of fire back questions from Ankit, backfire or whatever. WebSocket versus socket depends on your use case, right? If you're on web, then obviously you have no other choice than WebSocket. If you're probably running a language server protocol, or I don't know, connecting to MongoDB on Node.js, then you can obviously use TCP sockets, right? Cloud designer versus system designer. What is a cloud designer? I don't know. Is it like infrastructure as a code thing, which serverless sort of things provide? I'm not sure about that. Let's see. Angular is best for big projects where your React will break. React will not break on big projects. It's just that in React there are a lot of ways to do a single thing. This I would agree with you. Angular sort of brings in a lot of things within itself. So that's a plus point for people who want to have a systematic sort of direction of the project. But React can be made fairly, strict enough if you have the correct guidelines in place, if you have the correct tools in place for you. So again, a matter of choice. Angular versus React. Angular, I have used Angular, but the reason I do not really like Angular is I feel like it's a little bit too verbose in terms of functionalities. But again, it comes with its own benefits. Just like I said, it is a bit more strict in terms of what you should do and how you should do it compared to React. So there's that. But if you know your way well, if you know how to play along things, then React is a better choice in my opinion, right? Again, my opinion, not to be confused with a universal opinion. What do you think about Django versus React JS? Well, they're not really related, right? Django is a full-fledged framework which powers your backend, provides you with admin panel, manages your databases, migration, CLI tool, so much. And React JS is a very small sort of UI library compared to that. So this is like comparing apples and oranges. So I won't really compare that. What about Java for app development? Should I go for it or Kotlin? I have been out of the mobile application development scene, the native mobile application development scene, for quite a while. So I won't really know if Kotlin is a better option now. But I do know that Java is very well supported and would continue to be supported for long. So if I was starting today with a little bit of Java knowledge, because I have a little bit of Java knowledge, I have developed native applications in the past on Android, I would go with Java, right? Kotlin is also a good choice, but I'm not sure how that thing is playing along in the industry right now. Any JS framework for AI ML? Yep, TensorFlow.js is there. There are a lot of cool examples built with TensorFlow.js as well. I think on CodeDam, I also covered an object detection. There's a video called object detection or some sort of that. If you Google that, or if you just YouTube on that, CodeDam object detection using TensorFlow.js, you're going to find that example. So yeah, pretty cool stuff happening on the ML front on the web as well. Angular versus React, already answered that, I believe. Which is the best source to learn Redux for React? YouTube. Like, this is a very common topic in terms of web development. A lot of stuff has been covered, a lot of videos have been already made, and the core fundamental thing, the core technology is not changing, right? So the thing is actually the same all around from which was 2, 3, 4 years ago. Redux, the core philosophy of Redux has not really changed. So yeah, you can go ahead and YouTube on that. But how to use WSL properly? Well, that demands a tutorial, right? So I'm not really a Windows person anymore, because I mostly work with Mac. I do have a desktop in my home sitting right in front of me, which has Windows, but I have not really booted it in like a year or so. So I haven't really got a very good grasp of WSL yet. But I do believe that it ships with a real Linux kernel, right? So now you can just go ahead and learn Linux CLI just like you would do regularly, and use WSL as a sort of a VM for yourself, a fast booting VM. And if you do not want to get into WSL, I think Docker now natively supports and uses WSL in order to launch containers. So that is also a good thing. Just learn about Dockers, right? Docker files, Docker Compose, running Docker containers, spinning up, down, things like that, and you will eventually not need WSL at all in your workflow. Yep. Thank you to you too. I'm good at backend development and basics of HTML. And actually, by the way, I think some of you might be wondering why there's a sort of a screen on the left. So just to put a reminder again, there is a 20% off on the Node.js backend developer learning path, which we released. This is still in alpha. This is an early preview. So this is why this discount is there. This live stream is there, which just helps you go through the whole process of becoming a Node.js backend developer. And a lot of content would be added, a lot of content would be updated, and projects would be made. Classrooms, hands-on practice would be done. So yeah, let's do it. If you're willing to like commit some of the time and earnings of yours, which is like $10 a month, into a learning path system like this, then I would definitely be very happy to have you on board and help you achieve your backend developer journey. Right. So let's take up other questions where I was. Yeah, I'm good at backend development and basics of HTML, CSS, and JS. Please tell me a way to get a project easily. It's fine even if I don't get paid. Well, I would say the first thing you should do is learn about freelancing. I'm not very sure if you know about freelancing, but there is a site, something known as Fiverr. So if you go to fiverr.com, you can actually go ahead and set up an account, right? You can set up an account and you can start selling your skills, right? You can go ahead and take a look in the buyers section. Actually, let me just go ahead and actually show you how to do that. I have a bunch of videos, a couple of videos made on the same topic. So let's just go ahead and write CodeDam freelancing, right? And you can see that this This first video, do not worry about this. This is a 5-year-old cringe video. I would probably take it down. This first video and the second video is the hands-on practice and is the hands-off guidance you are going to need in terms of starting off as a freelancer on Fiverr and completing projects and getting paid as well for that. So there's that. You can go ahead and start with that. In fact, if you are a lead member, there is also a learning path for the same. I believe there it is, freelance web developer, where we actually go through step-by-step things, which is just like how we will do in backend. So this also comes bundled with your lead subscription. That is the plan 1337. And you can access all this content just like that, right? So there's that. Let's switch to the backend developer because that is what the talk is about. So let's see. Can I build simple e-commerce website with Nemo stack? What is Nemo? Node, Express, Mongo, and what is O? Other stuff. Oh, is this really something which is a convention? I don't know about Nemo stack. Nemo stack. I don't know. Maybe, but I've not really heard about Nemo stack. Pretty cool name. Yeah, obviously, if you're asking me that, can you build? Of course, you can go ahead and build it. It's not like a restriction that you will be put into jail if you are working with anything other than MERN-Stack. So definitely go ahead and build it. I see most courses on MERN-Stack because that is the hot thing, right? So that gets the views. That is why you see most of the content there. But yeah, Bootstrap is a good thing. Bootstrap 5 is out, I think. Not in the stable version, but in beta release at least. So Bootstrap is a good thing. Express, MongoDB are evergreen. So there's that. Definitely go ahead and build that. According to you, what is the best way to learn a new language framework and start implementing ASAP? According to me, is to do this and start implementing together. That is, start learning things and implementing things together. So I won't really worry about if I really know the ins and outs of the whole thing. If you would ask me to pick up Rust, for example, right now, if you would ask me to, just go ahead and learn Rust, the first thing I would do is try to recreate or try to create a Rust HTTP backend, right? And then I would try to figure out very simple things which I would do in Node.js, which I could do with Rust. So I'll create an HTTP server. I'll learn about what are the common frameworks I can use with Rust to build HTTP servers. Then I'll figure out how I can hook up some databases with Rust and just get started with that. So the best way is to just think of a project where you can implement a particular technology, a language, a framework, whatever it is, and start building around that. So that would be like the best way, according to me, to get started with the technology without actually just drowning in a tutorial hell or just not giving up basically while learning. So that is a good thing. All right, so best resource to learn Redux. I think I answered that. You can just go ahead and Google stuff. That would be the best resource, to be honest. React we can do functional syntax, but with Angular I don't think that's a question. So let's get that. Redux versus context API, very common question. I would say if you need a central state management in React, and if you want to get that thing up, get that feature up quick, go with context API. If you are willing to spend some time learning about the benefits of Redux, which are not a lot now with context API, it's just what I know is it's a more mature tool than context API. It is language and framework agnostic, and it comes with a good developer tools, right? So if you want to spend a little bit of time learning about Redux and data flow and how the unidirectional data flow works, what middlewares are in Redux and stuff like that, you're more than welcome. But to be honest, for the most part, context API would just get the things done, right? And I'm somebody who wants to get things done. So I would probably vote for Context API. But as an irony, I do have Redux implementations on CodeDam still as of now, because when CodeDam, I started creating CodeDam, Context API was not there. So Redux was my first choice. And yeah, I've just sticked with Redux just like a loyal coder to its technology. So there's that. But yeah, Redux and Context API are both good choices. Will GraphQL wrapped over a REST API a good choice along with React and front end? What do you mean by GraphQL wrapped over a REST API? REST is a different practice all along compared to GraphQL. So just to answer your question, I think you would not really have REST and GraphQL together, right? Because just to give an idea of how REST would look like, REST would be something like /API/v1 /add post, right? Or maybe like /API/v1/posts. And then you're going to have 4 methods: get, put, patch, and delete, for example, right? This is an example of a REST API. On GraphQL, you're going to have a single endpoint /GraphQL, and the rest of the things are going to go in the query, right? Query or mutation, whatever you're writing. So if you are editing a post, that would be on /GraphQL, and the mutation's name would be edit post or create post or whatever it is. So yeah, I mean, pretty independent things, pretty independent topics. GraphQL is a very, very interesting piece of technology, which I believe you should learn if you are a Node.js developer. Would really help you to build up your skill, because REST is not really something which is really enforceable, right? You can have a post created, that is an article created with a post request as well. You can have an article created with a delete method as well. So REST is more of a convention, right? But with GraphQL, you can really enforce the schema, and GraphQL also has a bunch of conventions that mutation should mutate the data. But you get the idea that GraphQL is much more enforceable in terms of technology compared to REST. So that is why I prefer GraphQL. But for simple projects, I would never set up GraphQL, right? GraphQL is very good technology only for use cases where you would have sort of, multiple resolvers and multiple mutations, multiple things are happening behind that. If you are creating a very simple application, never go for GraphQL. You're just going to add a layer of complexity in your applications. Again, depends on your use case. Why are you use TypeScript in React.js tutorial? Why not JavaScript? Because TypeScript is JavaScript, right? You can literally just go ahead and remove all the types from your TypeScript code, and it will suddenly become JavaScript. So if you're uncomfortable with TypeScript, it is absolutely fine if you're following along a tutorial where you just know JavaScript. Just ignore and not observe the TypeScript parts at all. I'm doing this. I think I have my React.js tutorial in TypeScript because, well, first of all, I like to work with TypeScript, pretty scalable and helps you catch up errors very quickly. Secondly, it is a good practice, right? So once you learn a little bit about TypeScript, you should probably never really code in JavaScript again unless you want to get something quick and dirty up, right? So TypeScript is very simple to set up with Node.js, just a few lines, just tsconfig, and you're good to go. And tsnode just to execute things. So yeah, prefer TypeScript anytime over JavaScript once you have learned TypeScript. Otherwise, keep it to JavaScript, and you can figure out rest of the things later on. Difference between TypeScript and Flow as types. I think Flow is not a really a system which really compiles down to JavaScript. So that is a big difference. I don't really know the internals of Flow, to be honest. But what I know from my knowledge is that TypeScript is really a language, right? It really compiles down to JavaScript. It has got a compiler written in C, C++. Dino also uses Rust as the compiler, I believe. Or maybe it is for something else, but I don't remember. But yeah, Flow is just I don't know, it's sort of a hint to the text editor or the interface you're working in for the types only. So TypeScript is much more powerful in terms of things you can do with your code. But yeah, that is why I prefer TypeScript, because it's a more complete solution. uh, how to get an internship at Codedam? Well, it's not at that scale where we will need a lot of interns right now. Still figuring out, as you might have just guessed from this live stream, that we are still figuring out how we can bring the most value to the people, at the same time sustaining the platform. So we have a lot of, not really a lot of, but a bunch of paid customers, and we have a lot of users on the platform, you can see. So yeah, pretty soon, man. Probably, I don't know, I can't really give a date to this thing, but yeah, I'm trying my best to scale this up as quickly as I can, deliver the most value, get at a sustainable point, even make profit, and then we can talk about like expanding team. Definitely that's something on my mind, but just not feasible to get a lot of interns yet. I am from information security background, and just one second. Yeah, I'm from information security background. I can write shell and Python scripts. I would like to know how to integrate an output of the executed script to front end. I mean, like integrate backend with front end. Yeah, this is exactly what I was talking about. So if you understand Python, if you understand, how backend communicates, how TCP sockets work, things like that. The next thing, if you want to develop a full application where you can control backend and front end, is to learn a little bit about how HTML, CSS, JavaScript, things like these work, and pick up a framework like Django or Flask. In your case, I would recommend Flask because Django is just an overkill. So in order to learn how to integrate your script, that is your backend to front end, for you and specifically you, Chaitanya, I would say just go ahead and look up Flask on YouTube, try out a bunch of tutorials, and you're gonna get that understanding and feeling of how you can, get started with things like communicating backend with front end using Python. So yeah, that's how you're gonna start. A lot of questions. Let's see. Is lead plan a whole package for every course? Yes, this is a subscription for the whole platform. So it's not like you have to pay individually for every course. It's a one time. You have to pay just once a month for this thing, and you're gonna access basically all the courses here. On the side, we are trying to bring more content creator, more external content creators as well, because most of the courses you can see are mine. But really want to provide maximum value and cover things which even I don't know. So yeah, this is a subscription to all the courses, all the classrooms. Classrooms again is a hands-on practice, and all the learning paths as well. So learning paths is basically these roadmaps sort of things. So freelance, front end, back end, things like that. A lot of plans in mind to scale up things. So yeah, just working on these things. Sorry guys, I'm just gonna skip some of the questions because I think it's already 1 hour. So I'll just pick up some questions which I believe are important for everybody and are not answered. So let's see. What do you advise me to focus on more in 2020, PHP or Node.js? Any advice? Well, I would say that, again, I think I have answered this question, but if you are starting off from zero, from scratch, go with Node.js, because that is like the most used, or not really most, but is more popular. The most used is still PHP, but Node.js is more popular than PHP. If you already have an experience with PHP or something, you can go ahead and build or become a tunnel vision of that developer who knows so much about PHP that nobody can defeat him. So yeah, there are really two ways to go about this. If you're starting off from zero, just pick up Node.js, which is more popular. If you're somebody who is already having some experience with PHP, then of course go with PHP only. Let's see. How much time does it on average take to become a full stack developer? Well, it's I don't know. For me, it was 7 years. I'm not really sure I still understand a lot of full stack frameworks. So that is what you mean. But it's 1 year for some, it's 6 months for others. It really depends on how much effort you're trying to put in on a daily basis, right? So if you're somebody who is willing to put in 5-6 hours of work for the next 4 months, you're going to have it. You're going to be a full stack developer. At least you're going to have the knowledge, if not the experience. But if you are somebody who codes once a week or twice a week, then it's not very helpful, right? It will take you years, or maybe not really years, but it will take you a lot of time. Experience, on the other hand, is a different game altogether. You might be a full stack developer in 4 months, but you will have that experience built up in years only. There is no other alternative. There's no other way you can build up or buy an experience course in for $10 or something, right? There is no course which can really sell you experience, which you're going to get by building projects. So that is something you have to do on your own. That is something you have to work on, building projects. So that is my take on that. So Neha asks from where we find projects for web development. Usually internships ask about first our projects. I think user imagination. I mean, there is so much opportunity, so much potential in terms of what you can do in terms of projects. Like the most common thing which I have seen, which DSA and people who are learning competitive coding do, is they come up with projects where they visualize the algorithms, right? So the other day, I came across a project which is somebody, I'm not very sure about the repository, but if you do not know about this channel called 3 Blue 1 Brown, so it's basically a channel which shares, nice animated concepts of things, right? So this pandemic, there was this pandemic video. Let's see if I can find it. So yeah, epidemic, not really pandemic. So if I go ahead and, for example, if you take a look at this thing right here, right, which is the simulation of pandemic, right? So this is a super cool project in terms of if you are able to implement this visually on web. Now this is super hard as well. I'm not really saying this is easy, but this is one project idea. And I actually saw a guy, I don't really have its GitHub repo right now, who implemented this on the web. So this is one example of inspiration. You can use videos of animated creators who use animations like this and create web visualization of things. You can do this with algorithms. You can do this with all sorts of stuff. You can create games. You can create mini applications. You can create chat servers for your friends, or personally, if you want to just chat with some of the people. Endless ideas. I mean, you can create sort of anything, whatever you imagine, right? I started off with very small games. My first JavaScript project was a tic-tac-toe game. Not tic-tac-toe, the what do you call it, rock paper scissors game. So that was my first project. And yeah, you just have to sit down. If you just go ahead and Google, in fact, project ideas for web development, you're gonna have so much material, right? So you can see login authentication, product landing page, to-do list is a very common JavaScript quiz game, JavaScript drawing, very sort of projects which involves a bunch of technical knowledge. So go ahead and look on things like these, right? So coming back to Code Dam again, right? Did he say 7 years? You mean 7 months? No, I actually meant 7 years. I have been coding from 7 years. But yeah, this is an over exaggeration from my point. There's not a clear line of when you become a full stack developer, right? It's just like I have been coding from 7 years, and now I can say that I'm pretty confident with a bunch of my tech stack. That is, if you give me my tools, I can basically recreate any sort of functionality in terms of robustness and cleanness of code. That is, my tech stack would be probably like Node.js, Mongo, React, Linux servers, deploying it on AWS, things like these. So it's not that it takes 7 years to become a full stack developer. It's just that I have been putting in work for the past 7 years. And yeah, I've been learning very, slowly and casually and according to my interest. That is why it took me so much time. But if you are focused and if you are actually, just sitting down and learning for the purpose of really learning, then it will obviously take you much, much less than time than what it took me. Right. So let's see. Shreyas says, I found a way to access your courses without signing up, because that is not a bug, that is a feature. The courses do not require you to sign up. So you can just go ahead and, enroll it like that, and it will still work. That is not really a bug. So yeah, I mean, some of the courses, if you want to enroll, for example, a paid course which is behind a lead subscription, then you have to enroll and sign up using that. But for the most part, other courses are free to access. So just so that people can really see the value before they actually even create an account, let alone pay for it. Okay, let's see. I know Spring Boot, Hibernate, and I have projects built in it. But now I have to start learning DSA for interviews. So should I learn more now or later? I mean, it really depends on what you want to do. Like, why do you want to learn DSA in the first place for internships? Of course, they ask that, but you're gonna find a lot of internships where they do not ask DSA, right? For example, fast-growing startups, which are, for example, just recently funded, and they are looking for web developers who they want to get up some web applications done. They want to maintain applications. They have absolutely no use of your DSA skills, right? So if you want internships, you can find those companies at the same time while you are learning merge stack or upskilling your things. So there's no really excuse of learning DSA for internship, because if there are some companies which require that, there are a lot of companies which don't. So you just have to figure out where you want to go in life, right? So if you want to learn DSA and get placed, or get an internship on basis of your college, that is your on-campus placement, then definitely go ahead and do that if that's what you want. Otherwise, you can get internship on the basis of your actual skills, on the basis of your real world implementation skills as well. You just have to find the right companies or the startups. Prateek asks, how do you think getting into designing is a good idea? If so, what do you suggest we should learn? I would probably be not the best guy to answer this question, because I'm not a designer myself. I am terribly bad at coming up with good UI designs. But I think Figma is a good start. Again, this is not something I would really give out as a solid advice, but I have heard a lot about Figma as a tool for designers to start with. There are a lot of tools like for mockups and wireframes as well. I'm not very sure about getting into designing is a good idea. It might be good for others. It might not be good for some people. It really depends on what your end goal is. If you want to become a full stack developer, then designing is not the criteria, I would say. If then, just like I said, even if you don't know how to design web pages, you have libraries like Material UI or Semantic UI to assist you with the designing part, right? But other than that, if your skills are on point, then you don't really need designing as a full stack developer. But if that is something which interests you and you like that, then definitely go ahead and learn about that. So yeah, that's my take on that. Your LinkedIn ID, please. You can find me on LinkedIn. Just write Mehul Mohan. I think you will be able to recognize me with this face. It's a very close up face. So yeah, just do that. Okay, I will just take 2-3 more questions. A lot of Q&A has happened today, and then we can just call it off. I would probably try to do this more frequently now that I have discovered StreamYard is a pretty cool tool which allows us to do this all sort of thing. So yeah, let's just go ahead and take up a bunch of more questions. Will you learn Dino.js? Not really, not exactly right now, because there's nothing to learn in Dino, right? It is the same runtime environment as Node.js. The only things Dino would probably bring in is, I believe, a sort of more inbuilt, what do you call it, the standard library, right? The support for standard library and a bunch of compatibilities with web-based interface like fetch APIs and things like that. So there's nothing really to learn into Dino. If you are already a Node.js developer, there might be a bunch of things, features, CLI tricks and tips which you might want to look, but that could really be covered in a 30-40 minute crash course. So if you know Node.js, if you know about that, the transition should not really be much painful. Let's see. Do we have any questions? So one last question. This is probably the second last question. Okay, let's keep it the second last question of the stream. How to get out of tutorial hell, please? So, like, I don't know, I have said this so many times. The really easy way to get out of tutorial hell is just to start implementing things which you're seeing in the tutorial itself, right? So that is like the easiest thing which you can do. Tutorial hell basically means just sitting on the back of your bed and eating popcorn while watching somebody else code, right? For example, it's me, it could be anybody whose video you're watching. So getting out of tutorial hell really means that you are following along the instructor. That is one way. Another way is just to think of the projects and start building it yourself. Another way is to build on top of where an instructor left. This is also something which I recommend all the time. For example, if you're following a video which teaches you how to create a to-do list, then build on top of that, create a reordering feature in to-do list, implement that to-do list again, but without React or without Angular, implement that in vanilla.js. So experiment around these things, experiment around all the stuff, and that would really help you to actually, just get an idea of things, right? So that is something which I would recommend you if you want to get out of tutorial hell like that. Let's see, one last question from Mehul itself. Hi Mehul, another Mehul here. Yeah, definitely. So I only have enterprise experience of Java, and going into another job, I feel this is inadequate. So what can be a way to learn things like React of enterprise level? Well, Java to React is a long jump, not gonna lie. By enterprise Java, what do you mean exactly? Because I'm not very familiar with the enterprise language term, right? So it is more like a good programming practice, if that is what you were talking about. So if you want to make a jump, I would say Java to React, if you have thought about like moving to backend to front end, I would say spend some time with React in terms of building projects, learn the best practices which people follow. There are a lot of practices which everybody follows. There are practices which are super good. There are practices which are super bad. Learn about the best practices. How you're going to learn that is by watching other people code. That comes the tutorial hell part, right? But you don't really want to get into tutorial hell, but it is still important that you actually see how other developers are coding so that you get the best practices out of them. Then move on to creating your own projects with the technology which you're learning, right? For example, if you're learning React, the obvious next steps would be to jump on Next.js, which brings React on backend as well. So create projects using that, learn about your tooling around the tools, learn about the ecosystem, which are the most popular UI libraries. Like Bootstrap is a very good option. Material UI is the best option, I believe, for React out there. Tailwind CSS is also an option. So learn about these things. When you're aware about your environment, your ecosystem, when you are able to talk in that language, which is sort of the language of your tech stack, then it really helps you to just provide real value to your company or to your startup or wherever you are working in your enterprise. So that is what I would say. Like, start off with very simple video following instructors, learn about tooling, get a little bit of experience with projects, learn about what are the next steps for that particular tech. For example, in React, the next steps are moving on to Next.js, learning about TypeScript, learning about a UI library, things like these. So yeah, start there. Hello, Max. Hello. So, yeah, I'll just try to keep the stream short now because I think it's already 1.5 hours. It's 2021 pass out and you're already big. Yep. It's still, I think, about 6 months or so for the graduation, but yeah, thanks for that. Have you worked with C# or .NET? I have worked with VB.NET very long ago. I don't even remember, like maybe 5 or 6 years ago. C#, not so much. I think I have worked with C# only once or twice when I was trying to create a platformer game in what is that engine called? What is that gaming engine called? I forgot its name. Shit. There's this gaming engine. I don't really remember the name. You can just post that in the description. But that supports C# and JavaScript. It's like Unreal, or it's not Unreal. I forgot the name, but that's the place I have used C#, and .NET I have used very long ago. So yeah, not really a lot of experience now with these technologies. So I meant by enterprise the level of language constructs. Example, reflection, subscribing. Reflection. Okay, reflection, you won't really want to use reflection in production, but yeah, I get the idea. So for those, you're basically talking about achieving some low level functionality and going out of the traditional way of things. So yeah, that would actually come with experience. In terms of React, I won't say that there is a lot of surface area or any other technology. As a matter of fact, in web development, there's a lot of surface area for that things. Tech for web is mostly simple. HTML is super simple. CSS is not very complicated unless you get into animations and stuff. And then JavaScript has its own learning curve, but yeah, I would say it's not as complicated as I would say other languages like Java. Like, I don't think we have reflection or anything like that in JavaScript. There are things like proxy and stuff like that, but yeah, that is something I won't really say that is used a lot of time in production level code unless you have a very specific requirement, enterprise requirement. So definitely that will come with time, and if you're looking for that particular functionality, you're going to find it anyway. So I would say just don't really stress a lot about these small things, and just get started with the technology. That's really the answer. Let's take up some final questions. I'm saying that one last question from so long, but you uploaded your content with Traversy Media. Yeah, I just hacked this channel the other day and just uploaded a video just to see how it performed. So yeah, turned out pretty good. I might do it again. So final question. Gatsby versus Next.js. A video on this, please. I'm personally not a very great fan of Gatsby. I don't know if you can do something which is not possible in Gatsby, not possible in Next.js, which is possible in Gatsby. So yeah, I mean, I'm all Next.js these days, but definitely I could just dig deep into Gatsby, see if there's any edge case which is ridiculously difficult with Next.js and is very easy with Gatsby. So can't really comment on this, a video on this, but definitely going on my list of things to learn and look for. Let's see. Final question. Are you starting now in bits? Not the best final question, I guess, but yeah, I am. Not graduated yet, so I am in bits. That's the answer. I'd love to see some content on Gatsby on Codedam. I don't know, man. I'm not a very great fan of Gatsby. So yeah, I mean, let's keep the stream, today's stream, till here. I would probably be doing more streams. Sorry again for the disconnect for the previous 20 days. I know I haven't been very active there, and I'm really just struggling to find banners now. So yeah, here we go. So again, 20% off link is in the description for the backend learning path early access, early preview. Um, a lot of content coming out very soon on the backend development learning path. Just to give you a final preview on what I'm talking about is this learning paths, backend developer early preview. You are some of the earliest people who are seeing this. This content right here, you can go ahead and access. You can start learning about front end, Linux basics, super important stuff, Node.js basics. We start with basics. Would add a lot of stuff here. We're going to cover out databases with Node.js, MySQL, MongoDB, my favorite one. We're going to be covering some projects. I'm going to be adding more projects here. So this learning path is going to be a lot more dynamic in the coming days. It's not going to be the static one. We're going to be covering everything very, very soon. Again, this is an alpha preview. This is for Node.js developers, people who want to learn Node.js as a backend technology. And yeah, you have a limited discount right now, and the link is in the description. If you opt in for, you're going to unlock all the courses on the platform. You're going to unlock all the classrooms and any further course and any further classroom and any further learning path which arrives on the website. So yeah, that's basically it. I would probably just close the stream now. Again, it's not really good evening, but sort of good night from India. So that's all, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I would love to answer all the other questions in the next stream, or you can just leave a comment in this stream as well. And definitely, I'll just go through all the comments also. So once this video is up and running, you can leave the comments. I would be happy to answer that. So yeah, thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. And I'll see you the next time.